Welcome back to more Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Last time, we defeated Clawroline and opened up the way to Winterhorns. This time, we still have one more mission left in Clawroline's stage, so let's head over there and deal with that first. So that should be right over here. And this is going to be kind of tricky. We have to do the stage without taking damage, which honestly is easier said than done. This is honestly probably the toughest boss for the missions we've seen so far. I would actually recommend Fire for this, but I'll try this with Sword since that's one of the powers that was actually given to us for this particular stage. If not, I might try with Fire, potentially off-screen in order to save time. By the way, you actually can skip the boss intro scenes, which is very nice. Again, use perfect dodges to go into slow-mo and deal some counterattack damage. Beyond that, because we don't have to worry about the time limit and the no hovering, that'll make the actual damage list a little bit safer to go for. Again, a lot of times you want to actually separate objectives into separate runs, specifically for no-hit runs, because of conflicting with the level of carefulness you need versus the level of aggression you need to actually get the time attack, if that makes sense. And typically when I go for the no damage, I play very safe, and thus I would not have any chance of getting the time limit. And 1 minute 30 is actually pretty strict for this stage. I definitely struggled quite a bit just trying to get through the stage fast enough on my first playthrough. I'm actually amazed I got as easily as I did, if I'm being blunt. Barely out of range, even with the counter. Yeah, Clawroline is just generally a little bit tricky. So far, no damage. And this is when things get a little bit difficult in terms of not taking damage. Dodging all of the projectiles and basically waiting for her to come back down to the stage. I realized when I was playing this on my first playthrough that this is basically like the Chaos fight from Sonic Adventure 1 in terms of just having to wait for the boss to actually come down, which isn't my favorite thing in the world, especially when going for a time attack. Having to actually wait around for a few seconds, which just kind of wastes time. Almost. Alright, second try, not bad. All missions cleared for another boss stage. You've saved all of the Waddle Dees and Wandaria remains. Alright, so we're ready to move on to Winterhorns. Northeast Frost Street. We went from a bustling amusement park to a frozen city, and honestly, I really like the aesthetic here. Winter levels are weird in games because on one hand, you have really pretty snow settings, on the other hand you have ice physics. Destroy 4 animal snow sculptures. This isn't too bad, but there are definitely some that are easily missable. This is actually one that I am fairly familiar with because I saw a video of where they are last night, because this is actually a stage I was a little bit concerned about getting everything in one go, so I specifically looked up where the snow sculptures are. There's also something over here, a little hidden passageway with tons of coins, find the side alley. And the sleeping enemy, we'll leave them alone. They're not doing anything wrong. But yeah, this is definitely one of those games where even though these are technically enemies trying to defeat us, I kind of don't like fighting them a lot of times and kind of just prefer to leave them alone if they're not actively getting in the way. Also, we have these little penguin enemies throwing snowballs at us. We also have Ranger, which I think we actually need for something later on. For now, I'll stick with Sword until we get closer to that point. The side alley definitely threw me off when I first played the stage. I feel like I missed that one, and I think I missed one other thing, but I'm actually not 100% certain on that. I'm also getting a little bit worried about the Waddle Dees, to be honest, because I actually don't remember where those are. I made a point to look up where the snow sculptures were, and the side alley was. Forgot to look up the Waddle Dees. It's kind of a strange game to be playing through, especially because it's so new at the time of recording this at least, to the point where there is a lot known about this game going into it, like a surprising amount really, but still, I haven't played it as much as like other games. This is only my second playthrough. I think, frankly, it speaks to the game's quality, in my opinion, that it's been out for a week. I'm already doing like a second playthrough, because obviously the first playthrough was just for fun, and then immediately after finishing the game, I was like, you know what, I want to record this game, and I feel like that speaks very highly for the game's quality. I feel like there aren't a ton of games like that where I can play them, and then immediately after finishing them, I'm like, I'm ready for another playthrough. It's actually really refreshing. March, when I'm actually, this is being recorded a little bit after March, but March was a really good month for games. There were two really amazing games. So now we have this little topsy-turvy section with these little moving platforms. I feel like this town also has sort of like a British aesthetic too, which like, with like the clock tower and everything in the distance, and I really like that aesthetic to it. And again, it's very much not something you traditionally see in a Kirby game, and I feel like that also adds a whole other dimension of like, wow, this is actually really cool, having sort of like borderline real-world locations in a Kirby game, in a sense. Over here, we have a little breakable path and a target that we have to quickly break to reveal that secret entrance. We also have some coins. We have like a lot of coins. We could probably upgrade some more stuff when we go back to town. Alright, so we have a gate and a moving target. So first we have to open up the gate, now we have to hit the moving target. I'll be honest, I'm amazed I got that as quickly as I did. That actually gave me some trouble originally. I definitely missed the target a few times. A Noble Ranger, by the way, works a little bit differently. We have two guns now, meaning we can actually fire a ton of shots. So instead of firing one really huge blast, we basically can fire a ton of smaller shots, which is actually really helpful for this very specific situation. Alright, so we're good to go. We have fire here. I think I'll skip fire for now. Down here should be another snow sculpture. Like the sand sculptures, I almost feel like, again, it's a case of lots of things in this game are really cute, and I almost feel bad, like destroying a snow sculpture of one of the little cute enemies. But we have to do it if we want to complete the game, sadly. Alright, so we have a breakable wall here with another Waddle Dee. This should be number 3. There are 2 missions left here. Well, technically, 1 mission left, but we have 1 snow sculpture left to find. I think this one is actually in plain sight, so we have nothing to worry about here. But we also have... Ow. Something happened with my, with like Death Plane for there, because there is a platform over here that you can actually land on, and for some reason, I was not able to land on it. That was really weird, actually. I'm actually surprised there isn't more things like that in this game, being their first 3D outing. This game is actually surprisingly stable, all things considered. so this should be where our final 2 missions are. I keep going back and forth of whether I'm calling them objectives or missions. I mean, it's like the same thing in essence, but I forget the exact wording. I think they are specifically called missions, but yeah, I tend to kind of swap between the 2 phrases. We have stairs here, we can get a capsule, and also break some blocks over here. We have these penguins that are a lot more threatening when we're a staircase, and have less mobility than actual Kirby. I say as I actually got bowled over by quite a few, as regular Kirby. We also have a breakable wall here, meaning we actually need to get stairs from somewhere else, and lo and behold, there is a convenient staircase right over here with the last snow sculpture, which will be very dramatically destroyed by literally dropping a staircase on it. Again, kind of overkill. Alright, so let's sneak by this little skull in me, and now a bunch of penguins have spawned in to make our lives a lot more difficult. So I'm just going to use invincibility frames to kind of power through, to be honest. I don't really want to deal with all that right now. So let's just deal with that really quickly, and we have our final Waddle Dee of the stage, so that means there's only one thing missing, and that's the secret objective. So first of all, we basically need to head over to the main path, dodging all of the new enemies that have spawned in, which thankfully isn't overly difficult. But the actual intended pathway is this little staircase up here, and we have the goal and a bunch of enemies. So let's actually go over here, hit the switches, dodge the bombs, and open up the way to the exit. Alright, so now we have a clear shot to the goal, but you might notice a railing is actually missing. So this is our final secret mission, going over to the tower. Reach the clock tower. So this will take us back. And we're good to go. Cleared the stage with all of the Waddle Dees saved. No problem. Again, it helps to look this up in advance. Water tank. Twister. Car shop sign. This logo belonged to an auto shop named Clawroline Custom Autos, part of Clawroline Core. Clawroline also sold industrial parts, managed construction, and made all kinds of stuff. From buildings to streets to amusement park rides. Remember, if it's quality, it's Clawroline. Or perhaps it would be more accurate. Squishy. Next up is the Metro on Ice. This is another really unique stage, not something I feel like I've ever seen in any other Kirby game, and it's honestly really fun. We have... I was going to say, we have this little frozen subway area. Tons of ice, not the biggest fan of ice, but I do like the aesthetic of having all of these like frozen tunnels, essentially. The music is also phenomenal, by the way. A lot of the music is actually totally original. For example, Green Greens only plays in Kirby's house, which is actually really unusual to not really have Green Greens play anywhere. At this point in the game, I'm definitely not as familiar with it. Like, I don't remember where all the load times are, so that's what happened earlier. We have a bunch of missions and Waddle Dees to save, as always. So, Weirdly enough, though, you don't really have a whole lot to deal with until later on in the stage. You have, like, you know, a capsule here. By the way, the water is frozen, so be careful. You can't even skate on it with ice, to my knowledge. We have these seals throwing bombs, which I'm not super crazy about. Let's actually try to pick up Crash this time, because I've been doing a very bad job of actually getting Crash. We also have an upgraded version that we should get at some point. Stand on top of 2 trains. So this one isn't that bad. The trains are both in this area. I actually want to save Crash until later for obvious reasons. It's a very good ability. We have another Crash here, so they're definitely wanting us to have this. We have a little arena with a couple of enemies and a dedicated fight. So let's use Crash to speed this up really quickly. I'm actually not sure if that was a good idea now that I think about it. Maybe, if possible, I should have saved it. But yeah, we actually haven't upgraded very much. We should make a trip back and actually upgrade a bunch of stuff at some point. Part of the reason why I hesitate is partly just because of having to sit through the animation constantly. So I kind of hesitate sometimes to just upgrade everything at once just because of how much time it would take. But then again, it'll take even more time if I put it off for too long. Stand on top of 2 trains, so that was the second train, and next up is one of the most obvious collectibles that I somehow missed. Up here we have a bunch of little posts that we have to hammer down. I, for some reason, didn't catch that we have to use hammer on these. There's a star on them and everything, and I still messed this up. I had to play the stage a second time, I got completely lost, I knew the Waddle Dee was in this area, I had the hardest time finding it. So yeah, not one of my best stages on my first playthrough in terms of just not getting lost. So we have this little area. I do like how some areas are still kind of side-scrolling. The camera you can move, by the way, with the right control stick, but it's relatively fixed, which I think is good, to be honest. Typically in 3D platformers, one of the biggest drawbacks and hurdles that developers face is camera control, so having less to worry about in that regard I think was a good call. Maybe someday we'll get a more open-ended Kirby game, but for now I think this is totally fine. A slightly more like linear 3D take on a platformer instead of like a really big open-ended variation. Find 2 secret passages. So we have this little secret room with a bunch of little crystals and a lot of ice that we have to worry about. We're also being given hammer for this, which makes me think, yeah, we definitely need hammer for this to break this over on this side. To get another one of these little gems, that's number 2. They're generally in order, but sometimes it can be a little bit tricky figuring out what the order is. We have 2 Gordos patrolling here, no big deal though. We have another dome mouth transformation, but we have ice, so we have to actually get through that relatively quickly or we'll be hit by the ice. And this is our second Waddle Dee? Yeah, our second Waddle Dee. So we found the 2 trains, we have one of the 2 secret passages, so we have one more secret passage and one other objective along with 2 Waddle Dees. I almost wish the objectives were individually tracked also, like the snow sculptures and things like that. I think that would have been nice. So here's another little secret passage, actually. So we're done with that mission. We have another locker, too. So let's tear this off the wall to get an invincible candy and some money. So we're invincible, so let's just dash through as quickly as possible. I think I've commented on this already, but I really like the sort of rock arrangement of the song. It's very unique, especially for a theme that doesn't really get a lot of remixes very often. It's actually a really solid remix of the song. Again, this game is like interesting to me because it's simultaneously kind of safe. It's kind of safe, but it's also very experimental in some ways. Like, you have a lot of original enemy designs, you have a lot of original music, and so yeah, the game has a very unique quality to it, where it's like, still identifiably Kirby, and very much so, but it has a unique flair to it that really helps it to actually stand apart from past Kirby games, while still sort of maintaining the core essence of the series, if that makes sense. It's honestly really impressive, because a lot of times I think about, like, platformers, and, like, what makes this series work, and something I've thought about a lot is a lot of times 3D platformers, especially in, like, the Nintendo 64 era. By the way, there's a cone mouth spot we can smash open for a capsule. But a lot of the early platformers from, like, the Nintendo 64 era and, like, you know, the Dreamcast era and so on, PS1, they all had a lot more experimentation in a way, to a point where almost certain series were very different from what they were in 2D. Well, this is actually very different in that it's fairly safe. Like, it's a fairly safe interpretation of what a 3D Kirby game should be like. In some ways, it's actually refreshing that it's still very much, you know, at its core, it's very much a Kirby game, and a pretty good one at that. There's our final Waddle Dee, meaning all we have left is our final mission, which actually, if I didn't fall all the way down, would have been up on top of this moving stack of, like, shipping containers. I'm actually going to ditch the cone because I want to actually be able to platform here. I say as I have ice, so I'm slipping around. This was potentially a mistake. So our final mission is actually right over here. There's a capsule and a bunch of boxes. Check inside the shipping container. So yeah, we have a bunch of items and our final mission. So with that, I think we're actually good to go. The exit should be pretty close. Yep, I think it's at the top of these stairs. We have a few enemies to get through. I'm not sure if the coins are worth it since we have almost like 70,000 or 7,000, but there we go. All missions cleared, all Waddle Dees saved. Overall, I do like the theming of the stage. It's a fairly straightforward ice level, but the theming really sells it, I think. Sword. Slice through this new world as a sword-wielding, green-hatted hero. Try charging up before you swing for extra power. Train hard and become this world's new sword master. Captured Roulette. Bouncy. Target Switch. While we have unlocked another stage, I think I want to do something else. Looks like they finished a new building in town. Let's take a look. Let's go take a look. By the way, you can simply press B to go back to town. Return to Waddle Dee Town? The 155 Waddle Dees you've saved work together to make the town even bigger. You can now play flash fishing. Try to land some big catches. The 145 Waddle Dees you've saved work together to rebuild Waddle Dee's item shop. Buy a few items to help you on your adventure. Alright, so I think the town is effectively finished. I think one of your copy abilities is ready to be evolved. I think we will go and actually evolve a copy ability. No, we're not quite done. There's still one more building we need to complete, and I just remembered what it is, and I can't say I'm overly excited for what that is, but we'll talk about that later. For now, let's head over to the weapon shop and upgrade some things. Oh, there's a rare stone on top of this building. I forgot about that. Definitely want that if we're going to upgrade some things. We have 10, meaning we'll be able to get a few different abilities powered up, which will be helpful for next time. New stock. I just added the crash ability. Enjoy! New stock. I just added the sleep ability. Enjoy! Wow, you have so many new blueprints to give me. Alright, let me get my tools ready. Then we'll get this evolution started. Thanks for waiting. The sword ability can now be evolved into Gigant Sword. Thanks for waiting. The crash ability can now be evolved into Time Crash. Thanks for waiting. The tornado ability can now be evolved into Floor Tornado. Thanks for waiting. The drill ability can now be evolved into Pencil Drill. You know, I was actually thinking about upgrading something, and I'm actually debating if I should or not, because there's actually something special coming up very soon, so I actually might not upgrade a ton of things, and instead intentionally hold some rare stones for later. Would you like to evolve the hammer ability into Toy Hammer? The hammer ability has evolved into Toy Hammer. So now we have a squeaky hammer, which is always great, and this will be helpful for something eventually, I think. But actually, wrong button, we want A for this. Actually, I want fire, because we have something special to go over next time. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join me next time for more Kirby and the Forgotten Land.